Mayor Eric Adams, under pressure to address violent crime, told Pix 11 he wants to see major changes in the state's bail reform law. Among them,
I believe judges should be able to have the discretion of dangerousness to do an analysis. If someone has an immediate threat to the city, they should make the determination if they should be released or not.
Julian Harris Calvin is director of the Greater Justice New York program at the Vera Institute of Justice and says the lack of a dangerous calculation in New York's bail reform law has little to do with the state's rising crime. And she points to New Jersey.
We see that under New Jersey's system in 2019, there were 14.5% of folks were rearrested on a felony offense. And we have those similar numbers here in New York City, New York State, even though we don't have a dangerousness calculus.
The purpose of the reform law in general was to reduce the number of people jailed awaiting trial simply because they could not afford to pay bail, something its adherents say disproportionately affect black and brown communities. But the perception among some law enforcement and public officials is that the law has increased levels of crime and they would like it revised. Some, especially Republicans in Albany, would like to see it repealed altogether.
Khalif Browder was the example that many people focused on, which was a young man who might or might not have stolen a backpack, who was given bail, couldn't afford bail, ended up spending almost 3 years in Rikers Island, came out, committed suicide. Very tragic situation.
Under New York's reform law, for most misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies, judges are required to release people with the least restrictions necessary to reasonably assure the person will come back to court. For these crimes, cash bail is prohibited.
I think it's important to note when it comes to the lion's share of felonies, period, but particularly ones that are violent, those are primarily bail-eligible offenses.
Suffolk County Sheriff ERROL TOULON is one of those who believe the state's bail reform law has been a failure, with one big shortfall.
Our legislators did not take into account that judicial discretion is extremely needed when any case goes before a judge. And more importantly, if you're going to release individuals from the custody and give them an ROR, where are those services in the community that's going to assist them so that they do not reoffend?
Now, the lieutenant governor points out that the governor has allocated money, some $10 million, in her proposed $216 billion budget for the types of services Sheriff Toulon mentions, which both sides of the aisle seem to think is not enough. Now, Mayor Adams' crime plan, by the way, also has some money allocated for such programs.